I'm here to talk to you about fast tracking identity onboarding today. So, our agenda for today is basically we'll start out with discussing our use case and then how we are going to use the features available in Identity Security Cloud to achieve that. So, that will essentially be the event triggers, forms, and workflows. And we'll just look at the demo of how we are going to achieve this solution. So what is identity onboarding? Obviously, it's a very common use case and it basically involves a lot of inputs from managers, HR, and from your team coming in, and then we collect all this input. It has to be then redirected to relevant teams for proper provisioning, and we just make sure that before the user joins the organization, all the things are ready for him they are ready to get started on day one. So this process could usually take maybe a day or two, or even more, like a week or so in some cases. But with the right tools in place and the correct way of implementing, you could bring that time down to maybe like a few minutes or even hours. So by using this use case, we are going to see how we can actually fast track it. So to fast track it, what we're going to do is we will try to automate the provisioning, which will take care of creating the accounts for the user and also handling the basic provisioning of birthright access roles and entitlements and everything. And then we will use forms to basically send out an email to the manager so that we can collect all the information from the manager so that we can create ServiceNow tickets if required for the hardware provisioning or anything else that needs to happen as a manual process, and then also sending out any email notifications that are required during the entire onboarding process. So the entire process, once we automate that's going to help us bring this onboarding time down. And then we'll have the user up and running and on day one, when they start their job and responsibilities. So without further ado, let's talk about like how I'm going to approach this use case. So in this use case, obviously we have always multiple ways to approach a solution. So in this case, I am going to use forms and workflows to fast track this use case. I'll also use event triggers, so not explicitly the event triggers as such, but I'm going to use a trigger within the workflows itself to drive this use case. Let's head on to the demos. So we'll start at looking at this form. So I'm not going to build the form and the workflow live, but I'm going to use one that I've pre-built already. So I have my form divided into roughly 4 sections. The first section starts out where you can have a form header or a company logo or whatever information you wanted the manager to know, so that they know what this form is for and why they are filling up that information. The next section I have here is to display the employee information. So whenever the manager is filling in, he is aware of which employee they are filling up this form for, and then just some of their credentials like their email address or employee number, their phone, and what's the probable start date of the user. So now when we'll use workflows together with this form, most of this information will be pre-filled for us because it will be coming in from the data that comes to us from HR. But if you're using my SailPoint option to trigger the form directly as a manager, you also have the option to enter this information manually. Now the third section on my form here is for the IT resources. So what this is basically for, so like for all the full-time employees, we are going to gather what kind of equipment they need, like either a Windows laptop or a Mac or maybe a Linux or Chromebook. So based on that, we have a couple of fields here to collect that input. And then there's also some applications which I have listed that you can say which applications they want access to, so that all this information can be gathered together on this form. And the last section on here in my form is to collect if the manager wants to provision any additional roles. So like an ad hoc role which is not a birthright role, but they know that this person coming in is from a certain background and they are going to need some additional roles. So they have the option to select what additional roles could be provisioned to this user. So I'm going to head back again, and then, designing this form is very easy. So I won't really go into technical details of doing that, because it's mostly like a drag and drop. So you set up your sections, and then, you just keep using this plus button out here to decide which field you want on the form. And then once you pick a field, so like I'll show you some of it. So like if it's a text field, you just click on this, or when you add it newly, you'll see this configuration pop up coming in on the right, where you provide the labels and then all the information, and then it's as simple as you just go through all the fields and set it up the way you like. Let's look at one of the toggle fields, just to show how they work. So this is more like a yes and no status. So you can have your own labels saying like, or when the toggle is on, what you have to display, and when it's off, what it should display. And then once it's set up, you can see that right up here. Now another interesting type of field that you can add is we have this select configurations, and then there are certain options with it, like you can have it like a static selection, or you can have it predefined, or you can have it based on search. So within this form that I have built, I've tried to demonstrate all three capabilities, where one of the select fields is a static one, the other one is a predefined, and then the third one I have for roles, it's actually based on search. So this one you can see is obviously the static one which I have here, and I've pre-populated some values that show up in this drop down right here. And now if I look at the cities, right, so this one is where I have used the search option, and then you can decide what's your search query going to be like. And then what it does for us is, from the identities indices, it will get me this attribute which I want to display. So it's going to search my system for all the cities that are available on my active identities. This is another toggle field, search select field. It's again static, and this is how we configure it. So it's very easy to add fields to your form. So how to get this kind of view, you need to have a column select configuration added, and then within the column select you can have as many columns as you like. So if you wanted to add more columns, you can just use this plus and keep on adding more to this entire section. Now this is one of the text areas that we have. Again, simple to add and configure. And the last which I want to show is the roles, which is again a predefined search which looks for all the roles in my system, and it will display it in this drop down, so the manager is able to select. And for this use case I have kept the number to 3, so the user is like the manager won't be able to select more than 3 ad hoc roles to be added to the user. And now we'll head over to two important configurations that have to happen on the form. So one is the inputs that go into the form. So as I was mentioning, on the employee section where we have all those employee number, phone, and a couple of other fields. So right, I want my workflow to send over these values to the form, and that's where I have to make these values. I have to define them on my form input so that it can be preset or pre-populated, and then the manager doesn't have to enter that information anymore. So any field that I want to be pre-populated, it should be appearing on this input over here. And the other important form feature is that we have to set up is the conditions. Now what does conditions do is it basically drives which fields on the form should show or hide or either enable or disable on a particular selection of the user. So in my case, I'll just go back to the form once here. So if you remember the IT resources section that I had, so over here I have these 3 drop downs, right? So if I were to select that I want a Windows machine, automatically my Linux drop down should hide, and then if I select the Linux option, my Windows drop down should hide. And then if I select neither, like if I go for Mac, both of these drop downs are going to be hidden. And then that's what I can control via my form conditions, and those conditions are defined right here. So it's again easy to define conditions. All of these are AND together, so you just have to say that the laptop shouldn't be all of this, and then if that is, then you just hide the Windows, or the other way around, if it's Linux, you disable the Linux options. And then to be able to pre-populate the form fields that I was talking about, so this is the condition we do. So typically you would check if the input is available, means the workflow was able to send the information to the form. So in that case, what we do is use the set default value option here, which will pre-populate the employee number, and then we make that field disabled. Disable as in it will make it read only, so that we don't have to make further modifications to it. So that's how form inputs and form conditions work. So now that we have the form ready, I'll walk you through the workflows that I have designed. So I have split up the solution into 3 workflows. So it's more like a one main workflow and then 2 micro workflows. Why I did that? Because simply like right now, this workflow will send the form to the manager, collect the inputs, use that to create ServiceNow tickets, and also assign this additional roles. So I can build all of them in one single workflow also. But tomorrow if I decide that hey, I want to stop creating ServiceNow tickets, then I end up modifying the entire workflow. So as opposed to that, if I have it in a separate workflow, all I got to do is just disable that workflow, and then the rest of the functionality still continues. So that's the reason I have it as separate workflows over here. So I'm going to start with the very first one, which basically triggers on the identity creation trigger. So as soon as an identity is created in the system, this workflow is going to start. I have a wait condition here so that it just gets time to provision the accounts and take care of the basic birthright role provisioning. And hopefully once that is done, that is when I'm triggering the form action, and within this I select the form that we just previewed. So now this form is going to be sent to my manager, and then when you select this form, you will notice that automatically whatever the form inputs were listed, they start appearing here as text inputs, and then all you got to do is map them to your trigger, and then those will be pre-populated for us. So I think I have about 5 or 6 inputs, so all of them I have mapped here, so they can be pre-populated, and the recipient of the form is going to be the manager of the user. So now once the form is sent, it's upon the manager to take action on it. And once the form is submitted by the manager, all we do is within this workflow, I'm just collecting all the information that he set up, and I send out an email notification confirming that information back to the manager. So as you can notice here, the recipient is the manager, and then I have this body already designed for the email template, which basically collects all the information from the form that was just submitted, and it will send it out to the manager. So this is the first workflow. And I'm just going to enable it so we'll be able to test it out later. So heading over to the second one, which is the short one, where we basically start out by using the form submitted as our trigger. So now this particular trigger will look for which form it is attached to. So once CyberSolve user onboarding form is submitted, that's only when this will trigger. The second step we are doing here is actually verifying if the manager actually selected any roles to be provisioned to the user. If they did, then I'm going to find that user by using the ID and the information that came from the form, and then I'm going to loop over and use a manage access step within the form within the workflow, to basically assign all of those roles which the manager had selected to be provisioned to the user. So this is how my manage access step works. It's going to loop through all the roles and then add access to this user ID which comes from the form. And that's it. That's what this workflow will do. Let's head over to a third workflow. This is a comparatively big workflow where this is the one responsible for collecting the major inputs from the form and then driving all that information over to ServiceNow, so to be able to create tickets. The trigger again is the same. We are looking at the form submitted trigger, and the form name is CyberSolve user onboarding. The first step over here we do is collect the manager information so that we can send it over for notifications and other purposes. Within the define variable step, I'm using it for cutting, having a substring on my date, so that I'm able to drop the time value of it and just use the mmddy characters out of it. Within the get account steps, what I'm trying to do over here is find the ServiceNow account of the user, so that I can attach it in the ticket as like the requester, or like who is the ticket being requested for. So for that I need the sys-id of the ServiceNow account, and that's what I'm trying to collect in the get account step here. And this is the account ID that I'm going to extract from the previous step. Now within the second define action that I have here, if you remember on our form we had a lot of toggle options for basically softwares or other applications required. So within the form they just return a true or a false. They don't actually let me know which software the flag was for. So then I am going to use these define variables to translate that back to a software name, so that I can use it in my ServiceNow account to let the provisioning team know what exactly has to be set up. So whenever it finds a true, it's going to replace that with the name of the flag, and then if it's a false, it will just say like a no. And I'm doing that for all the applications that were configured on the form. And now finally the next step why I'm branching out here is based on the IT resources that I was requesting. So as I said, like if we have a Windows, there's a different type of ticket that I would create. If it is a Linux, it would be a different ticket, and then for a Mac and Chrome, there's a different ticket. So just because of the way the managed ServiceNow ticket action works, and it needs like a finite key value pair, I had to use 3 different steps here because it didn't work with the velocity. I was trying to give it a go, but it didn't work because this additional fields feature over here, it doesn't really work with velocity, so you cannot do any if else things here. So I thought it's just better if I branch it out based on what type of selection was made. So if it was a Linux, it would go to the first action here. Then I think if it is a Windows, it heads over to this ticket 2 step, and for all other conditions it will go to the 3rd step over here for creating the tickets. And within this step, all we have to do is provide our ServiceNow credentials and obviously the URL of the ServiceNow tenant. And once that is done, you can set up all the other attributes that need to be set up on the ticket. So that could be like your description, categories, and then all the additional information that you want to send on the ticket goes into this additional fields text area over here. So you can see I'm grabbing all the information from the form over here, and then that is what will flow through to our ServiceNow ticket. So now once the ticket is done, again we give it some time, so we wait a bit for it to actually process, communicate back and forth to ServiceNow. And after that wait is over, we try to check if the ticket creation was successful. If it was, a successful notification will be sent out to the manager, if it wasn't, a failure notification will also be sent out. So though the manager is aware that the automated process, for whatever reason, it didn't trigger a ticket. So in that case, then he can either use my sale point to trigger the form manually, or they can just, if they have access, go to ServiceNow and then try to create the ticket that way. So at least they are aware what's going on in the system. And if it did go successfully, then I have another wait condition here. I mean, obviously for the demo it's just minutes, but typically it might be maybe 2 to 3 days or maybe a week also, to just give to the manager, or actually the assignment groups within ServiceNow, to do the provisioning and then close out those tickets. And within this step is where we actually monitor the status of the ticket, and if it was completed, then another notification will be sent out to the manager. If it wasn't completed within the given time frame, the notification will still be sent to the manager, so that they are aware that the ticket wasn't acted upon, and then he has to reach out to someone manually to get it completed. Within this workflow, again, you have a lot of space to add enhancements to it, like email escalations or reminders that you may want to go have be sent out to the manager or their manager, so that they are acted upon before the due date is reached. But I just have one notification set up right now. So that's a quick overview of all the 3 workflows. So what we'll do next is look at the demo of how it's going to work. So for that, let me just enable this. So we have all the 3 workflows up and running and in the enable state. So now I'll go over to my HR source, where this is a delimited file source which I've just created for this demo. So we'll onboard a user here, and then just wait a few minutes for the provisioning and everything to complete, and then we'll verify that they got set up correctly. So the new user that I'm going to add is maybe this one, Jack Smith. Yep, so you see that the user was created. So now this is when the workflow would have triggered the identity creation, and then it will start working on all the 3 workflows simultaneously. I mean, the other 2 workflows will still have not triggered because the form is not yet submitted, but let's see if the first one was triggered. So you can see that this one is triggered and it's running now. So maybe after a minute or so, it's going to send us the form for provisioning. Meanwhile, we can head over to check the basic provisioning of the accounts, and other stuff was completed. So here's Jack Smith. So you can see that the identity was set up and they have all these attributes populated. If I go to the access, you can see they have the current base employee access, and as you can see, based on the built-in SailPoint provisioning that we are using, right, so AD and Prism accounts were provisioned for this user automatically based on the RBAC design. So now we are just waiting for the form to be sent to us, so that we can have the ServiceNow ticket trigger, and then see how that action works. Let's see if we have yes. So the manager for this user is, I believe, Amanda Cliff. Yeah, Amanda Cliff, and then that's where the form was set up. I'm going to copy this link, and we'll use a new window to log in as Amanda. I'm just going to paste the form link, and as you can see, we got all of this information pre-populated because it was set up in the form or the workflow that way. So now I just have to fill up the rest. So let me quickly pick a few things. So maybe I'll say, since we are in Austin, let's pick Austin, and I'm gonna try a Windows machine maybe, and Windows 11. And you notice the Linux drop down was hidden now. Let's just pick a few, and I'll say I want 24 gigs of RAM on my machine. And for additional roles I can maybe pick give him Citrix access and maybe also VPN access. And another thing actually I did talk about is if you were to select any roles which have an approval flow attached with it, the roles will continue to follow that approval process. So they won't be auto provisioned unless they only will be auto provisioned if you don't have any approval scheme attached, but if you have some, they'll follow that process. So I'm going to go back to this mailbox, and we see a lot of emails are triggered out. So we'll look at the first email. So this is the email sent out to the manager. It basically confirms what all information was submitted in the form. Right, so this is just the manager getting a confirmation like, okay, you filled up the personal information for this employee, and these were all the options that you had picked up, and the solutions, the softwares and everything. So that's the first email, and then you see a couple of more. So this is for the roles that we added. So all the standard access process and roles process is still going to follow, and you'll get email notifications for that. If I would have selected any roles that require some approvals, it would have gone that. And now I also got another email saying that a ticket has failed, but let's make sure what's going on here. So let's go over to ServiceNow. Or sometimes it's probably just because it's not able to reach ServiceNow, it may not have triggered the email. But let's go over here and see if we were able to get a ticket created. Yeah, and there we have it. Probably something wrong with the email status or the flag that we are receiving, because it said failed on the email, but it actually did get the ticket created. So if you can see on the request here, it was requested for Jack. The location is Austin, and because it's a Windows machine, I had this price set up, so this is there. And plus all the options that we had selected on the form, like I want a Windows laptop with Windows 11, 24 gigs of RAM, and then for all the softwares that I had requested, like whether it was a yes or a no, all of that comes into this special instructions for the user. And then I believe this one has been assigned to the Windows hardware support group because it was a Windows laptop. Let's see if we have time for one more quick test. Let's onboard another user, and maybe this time we can select maybe a Mac or something. Let's see. And I'm really sorry, I know I'm going too fast, but be assured that all of these artifacts and the forms and workflows will be available on the forum, so you'll be able to have a closer look at them very soon. And then hopefully I'll also try to summarize all the steps in detail, so you don't just have an overview, but a detailed overview of how we got to the solution. And if you have any questions, also feel free to reach out to me via forums or the dev chat that we have live, and then I'll be happy to answer all your questions. So actually one thing we didn't check for Jack, I'll go back and show you that the role that we had selected, probably the Citrix and VPN access, that also got added over here on the roles, because earlier they had just one role and now they have 3. Let's see if we can. So I think I'm almost on time here, but hopefully we can continue this within the forums perfectly, and check there, but I'm pretty sure this will still work. So thank you for tuning in today.